everything you've ever known, every single atom around us, or even all the memories you've ever had. Actually, they might be getting slowly deleted right now by some weird glitch in the universe's operating system. Think about it like this. When you accidentally crash a hard drive, a massive amount of data inside is gone forever with no way to recover it. In astrophysics, a black hole does the exact same thing. It crushes stars, swallows light, and sucks in everything that crosses its path until nothing is left. But have you ever wondered, what if this vast universe actually has a hidden backup system running in the background? Today, we're going to dive deep into the cosmic database to trace how a white hole acts as the ultimate system restore protocol for our reality. The world isn't a mystery, it's just a system running exactly as programmed. Before we dive any deeper, we first need to understand that the universe's operating system is currently dealing with three massive glitches. First off, it's what physicists call the information paradox. Think about it. According to quantum mechanics, fundamental information about an object should never disappear. But when that object falls into a black hole, all that data seems to be permanently wiped from the cosmic registry out of nowhere. Second, it happens right at the event horizon. This boundary acts like a bad sector on the hard drive of space-time. It's a point where gravity gets so intense that the law of quantum conservation completely breaks down, shredding, scrambling, and wiping out the original state of everything that passes through it. And third, it's about the stability of the cosmic database. If the universe keeps losing information like this with no recovery protocol, the whole system will face thermal equilibrium failures. This could lead to a catastrophic system crash, collapsing the very structure of time and space. The truth doesn't care what you believe. It just needs you to do the math right. The real horror here isn't just that information disappears. It's that the mathematical gears keeping the entire system running are about to break. In the quantum world, there's a fundamental rule called unitarity. It's a principle stating that the sum of all probabilities for any given event must always equal 1, or 100%. To put it simply, when you flip a coin, the outcome is either heads or tails. There is absolutely no scenario where the coin just vanishes, or where the probability somehow ends up at 120%. But if information falls into a black hole and is truly deleted, the unitarity equation completely breaks. The probabilities of the universe won't add up to 100% anymore. In physics, this is a blue screen of death-level disaster because it means the laws we use to build stars, solar systems, or even the molecules in our own bodies will lose all precision. A consensus among theoretical physicists not too long ago pointed out that if the universe's database leaks and keeps losing information, the system will face a thermal equilibrium failure. This would permanently throw off the background temperature and pressure of space. The universe cannot afford to lose even a single bit of data. It needs a safety mechanism to patch this leak, which forces us to look back at the very same equations we used to predict black holes in the first place. If we peer into the deepest core of a black hole, we run into what we call a singularity, a point where gravity becomes infinite and standard physics just stops working entirely. But mathematically, Einstein's field equations have a fascinating property: time reversal symmetry. The equations don't say time has to only move forward. If you replace the time variable with a negative sign, essentially running the cosmic tape backwards, Einstein's equations instantly generate a way out that is the polar opposite of a black hole. That exit is a white hole, a cosmic fountain that refuses to let anything fall in, but spews everything out instead. When information gets squeezed to the absolute limit at the singularity, reaching a quantum threshold called Planck density, gravity stops crushing it infinitely. Instead, quantum mechanics kicks in with a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. It's essentially the data bypassing the dimensional wall, just like a hardware system experiencing a buffer overflow. When data density exceeds the storage limit, the system is forced to reset and dump the packets out the other side. This means the singularity is not a dead end, it's the gateway for the system's restore protocol. But the big question you might be asking is, if information gets shredded and scrambled by massive gravity, wouldn't whatever comes out of a white hole just be useless cosmic static or corrupted code? The answer lies in an incredibly elegant concept called the holographic principle. According to this theory, the 3D information of anything falling into a black hole doesn't actually sync to the inside. Instead, it gets written and encoded as 2D data on the surface of the event horizon right from the start, like a backup key printed on a label. As the white hole starts releasing energy and matter, the process of scrambled randomness, or entropy, begins to run in reverse. The 2D data stored on the event horizon acts like a master blueprint, organizing the spewed energy back into its original structure. This process works exactly like a defragmentation run on a computer's hard drive. It clears out corrupted clutter and reorganizes the storage space to prevent dead weight from piling up in the fabric of space-time. This isn't a fluke, and it's not a miracle. It's the highly precise mechanism of the cosmic operating system, recycling broken data packets to keep the entire reality stable. Honestly, if we step back from the complex physics of deep space and just look at ourselves in the mirror, we'll find that our own bodies and minds are running this exact same storage and recovery system every single day. Have you ever wondered why human brains have a mechanism for forgetting? Think about it. If our brains recorded every single thing we saw, heard, or felt 100% of the time without filtering anything, within 2 weeks our minds would hit a system overload and completely crash. That's exactly why nature designed a brilliant process called sleep. While we're fast asleep, our brains act like system engineers, running a defragmentation cycle to organize useful memories, move important files into deep storage, and sweep away emotional clutter so we can wake up with a clean drive ready for the next day. It's not just physical, it's psychological. When we face trauma, loss, or pain, our psychological coping mechanisms compress those events, organize them, and turn them into life lessons or wisdom. We don't delete the past. Our internal system recycles it so we can keep moving forward without a system crash. In a way, we are just miniature systems reflecting the grand operating principles of the universe. We are constantly learning to throw away clutter, defragment our memories, and restore broken pieces of ourselves over and over again. When we step back and look at the whole picture, the core truth of it all is actually incredibly simple. The complex laws of physics we struggle to understand might just be the source code of a massive operating system designed for one thing: maintaining stability and preventing a terminal system failure of our reality. Because under quantum rules, the universe cannot afford to lose even a single bit. If the causal chain breaks because information leaks away forever, the mathematics holding together stars, galaxies, and even our own bodies would completely lose their precision. Destruction and erasure are simply not options for the system, which is why this perfect recycling loop is running constantly in dimensions we might not even perceive. Clues pointing to this system are starting to pop up in deep space. In 2025, theoretical physicists began detecting tiny radiation bursts suspected to be micro-white hole bursts, suggesting the universe is actively reclaiming and spewing back lost data packets in real time. In this massive cosmic theater, everything is constantly circulating and reorganizing itself. No information is ever permanently lost. It only changes state and gets returned to the database to balance the system's thermal equilibrium. Massive stars might fade, great civilizations might crumble, and life will change form over time, but those are just adjustments of variables in a cosmic formula. The players change, but the equation remains undefeated. Hearing about this cosmic restore protocol makes you wonder, and maybe even take the hypothesis a step further. If no data is ever truly lost and everything gets returned through a white hole somewhere out there, could we actually build a device to intercept and decode those packets? In theoretical terms, if our civilization advanced enough to analyze signals from micro-white hole bursts, we wouldn't need to dig up fossils to study the past. Future scientists would basically be quantum archaeologists, reading the historical timestamps leaking out from the back doors of space-time. Imagine scanning and decoding those emissions to watch a 3D hologram of the very first star exploding in the early universe, or recovering the data of matter that fell into a black hole billions of years ago. Sure, modern science is nowhere near that yet, and we don't have the technology to isolate these signals from the noise of space, but that doesn't mean the recovery protocol isn't running. It's just waiting for a variable like us to understand the mathematics well enough. In the end, when we look back at where we started, all the anxiety about darkness, loss, or the terrifying image of a black hole crushing and swallowing stars turns out to be just a misunderstanding on our part. Because inside this massive operating system, there is no such thing as permanent deletion. What we thought was a terminal hard drive crash is just the first step of a protocol moving and re-indexing files, getting ready for a system restore that will eventually return them to the active directory. The world and the universe we live in have never let emptiness or errors defeat the original code. So the next time you look up at the dark night sky and feel overwhelmed by its cold mystery, shift your perspective. Remember that everything around you, including yourself, is running on a perfectly calculated, fully backed up system. Because the cosmic operating system never crashes. And every single bit of data that makes up who you are will be stored, recycled, and kept safe, never truly disappearing from this equation forever.